All right, hello AMBW audience. This is me, your host today. This is the first time that I'm showing my face on this channel, but today I'm not alone because I have with me a very special guest, the director of one of my favorite movies of all time, and as well as some of yours as well, Mr. Timothy Chey, who directed Fakin Da Funk, 1997. He's gone on to do other films as well. I saw a few of them, including Slamma Jamma, which had me in my feelings for a couple of hours. Um, and I really just, you know what, Timothy, or sorry, yeah, can I call you Timothy or Mr. Shea?
Oh, Tim. Tim is fine.
All right,
Tim is
all right,
fine.
thank you, Tim. So, of course, on this channel we talk about all things AMBW related. And your film, of course, is one of the shining achievements in the whole like community. Of course, the film covers a sort of like interracial relations. A young Asian American boy is adopted by a black family. And for me personally, when I watched the movie, I was expecting something, I guess maybe a little bit more over the top. Something more sort of like fish out of water, joke, 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 all this time, sort of like racial humor. But I was surprised because it has a lot of heart. It has a lot of heart, and it has a lot of yeah, I'll be honest, it had me in my feelings a lot of the time. But it also has a lot of humor as well, and it definitely wears its heart in its sleeve. And I was just wondering because just sort of looking back on the history of Hollywood and where we are currently right now, diversity is something that is just sort of a kind of very controversial, very popular topic to talk about right now. And we're still going through it. We're still people of color, actors and whatnot are still struggling to get leading roles, both Asian, Black, and Hispanic, and so on and so on. But back then, your film just seems such like a very natural progression in that sort of right direction that we all want, which is more, people of color in leading roles. Um, and then of course it sort of stopped after that. But yeah, so I just want to congratulate you and thank you for first of all for making the film. I know it's been a while, but again, it is one of my favorite movies. I think it's a very good film. I think everyone should go and check it out right now. It's called Faking the Funk. And my first question to you, Tim, would be, well, what was your inspiration for writing and directing that film?
Well, thanks, Christopher. And by the way, it's an honor to be on your wonderful YouTube show. It's great. Fakin' the Funk was the number one cable movie in 2000. It was bought by Universal, released very limitedly theatrically, and then USA Networks, their sister channel, put it on. And it ended up becoming the number one movie in 2000. And it was shown 19 times on prime time, which it was unheard of. And thanks to the guys at USA Networks for believing in the film. But to go to your question, what inspired me? I grew up in a multicultural setting in high school. I played a varsity basketball where I was the point guard, and so that's why I can relate to a little bit of Jeremy Lin because I was a pretty good point guard. And at 6'2", I was a point guard because everyone else was 7 foot.
Yeah.
I had a lot of experience with Black people. I dated Black women. I taught at Manual Arts High School, which was an all-Black high school for the joint educational program when I went to USC. So I had a lot of Black friends and grew up with Black people. And back then, there was just no talk of racism. This was before the LA riots in '92. So this was a time, an era that I don't think will ever happen again. But it was a wonderful, wonderful time. And we made Fakin' the Funk. We were the first Asian Black movie, Christopher. This was before Rush Hour.
Yes,
so
yes.
I was at a party and Chris Tucker came up to me and said, he goes, I heard you did this Asian Black film, Tim. I'm doing a film with Jackie Chan. Could I see your movie?
Yes.
And so, I showed him a VHS because back then it was VHS. There wasn't even DVDs back then. And I gave him a VHS copy and there were lines in Rush Hour that were in our film.
Yes, yeah, I noticed that,
yeah. So we were the first Asian Black film. We were the number one movie on cable TV back then, and it really rocked, and it was played so much, Christopher, that my friends were flipping channels. They would see Fakin Da Funk, and they would keep flipping because they were sick of seeing it, they said. And I was sick of seeing it too. I come home, flip through the channels, see my movie, and then I keep flipping because I said, oh, if they're playing it too much. But yeah, it had a really great run, and grateful for what it started.
Right. And I just sort of just touch upon that a little bit. Yeah. So first of all, I was very aware of the fact that Chris Tucker went to you and asked to see your film prior to actually shooting his movie Rush Hour. And first of all, I have to say that for me personally, the '90s were the last good decade of filmmaking. Like for me
Oh,
personally, I'm gonna say this, because you think back in the last, I don't know, maybe almost 20 years now or so, and we're sort of living in this age of blockbusters and superhero movies, and Fast and Furious and all these huge franchises, and and again, like diversity is sort of like a hot topic nowadays, especially nowadays, very much so. But I want to say, also point out that I don't think movies like Faking the Funk and Rush Hour and Romeo Must Die and all that stuff around, they all came out around the same time. But we haven't really, that sort of era of filmmaking, I want to say, hasn't really been prevalent. It's not really popular nowadays. You know what I mean? That sort of like people of color in positive, rich, energy filled, positive portrayal leading films and roles. Again, your film is a very positive portrayal of Black people and Asian people. I want to point out one thing, and that is the great late what's his name, Mr. John Witherspoon, who recently passed. Rest in peace. But I want to say that, what, I will say that he gives one of his best performances in your film, because he is he's very down to earth. You know what I mean? He's not as I want to say as brazen or as outspoken as he is like in the Friday movies. You know what I mean? Or like any other movie he's in. And so he gives sort of a more kind of mature, very natural performance in your film. And that's, again, like I'm telling you, Tim, there's so many things in your film that just caught me off guard. I mean, and also just, I mean, the cast is almost like an embarrassment of riches. You know what I mean? You had just, I mean, Dante Basco, Tatyana Ali, who was just coming off Fresh Prince. You had Pam Grier, Ernie Hudson. I mean, it's just, again, like like I literally just said, like just less than 5 minutes ago, like this film, you don't see movies like this nowadays. You don't, and it's a really big shame. But I wanted to, again, to ask you, and sort of like, obviously this ties back to my channel and whatnot, um, your experience dating Black women and how that translated to you writing that script. I also want to ask you, what kind of response did you get from your peers and from people and just from like just in general, like the whole like audience, movie going audience, in regards to this film after it was released? What kind of yeah.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, we were flown by Quincy Jones to New York City for
Mm,
the Urban World Film Festival.
mm-hmm,
And we were one of the headers at the Asian Pacific Film Festival in San
yeah.
Francisco. So it was hitting on all channels. We were in the Hamptons Film Festival in New York City, and to mainly Caucasian groups. So it was hitting on every racial barrier. Hispanics were loving the film. And again, it had a lot of exposure once it got onto USA Networks, but the reaction was just incredible, Christopher, just incredible. Standing ovations at all the film festivals. And then the reaction on USA Networks was amazing. And so, yeah, it was an incredible time. And remember, we made this movie 4 years after the 1992 riots.
Mhm.
And so to just be in South Central with my Black cast in the hood of South Central 4 years after the riots, and everybody, including Witherspoon, Nell Carter was also in it, Pam Grier. They really wanted to show a statement, Christopher, which was it's the media. It plays such a huge part, even today, in dividing races, and showing how this race is pitted against this race and all of this stuff. And what they were trying to say with the statement was, that's not so, not necessarily. People of all colors are actually getting along. They haven't shown that side because it's boring. It's non-controversial. So that's another thing that propelled me, to show this Asian woman as a transfer student, and then at the same time, this guy, two parallel stories.
Right.
And I did that with Freedom too. I like going back and forth between two stories, but yeah, that's what I liked. And Margaret Cho was wonderful on the set. Kelly Hu, of course, blew up after our film. Everyone blew up. Chris Spencer became the host of Vibe. Dwayne Martin had his own show. He was in Above the Rim. Ernie Hudson was great. Pam Grier, of course, blew up with Jackie Brown. And Margaret did great. So the whole cast just really blew up after that, Christopher, and really appreciated all the support. And yeah, it was a hit in many ways. It was a hit in many ways.
Yeah, no, absolutely, sir. And again, thank you very much for making it. It is such a wonderful, it's a gem of a movie. I really do wholeheartedly, if you guys are watching this and you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. Spend a day or so. It's a lot of fun, and it'll catch you off guard in a few places as well. And also, I mean, first of all, again, I'm sorry, I know this is kind of like off topic, or not off topic, but like Pam Grier. Oh my God. Like ever since I saw, okay, so I've, like all those like blaxploitation films and whatnot that might or might not have been appropriate for, younger audiences. I actually saw Foxy Brown when I was like 12 years old somehow. And let me tell you, I had the biggest crush on Pam Grier, still do. She's just amazing. So the fact that you got to work with her and direct her in a film is just amazing, amazing. But I had a question too, and again, in watching your other films, Slam and Jamma, basketball seems to be a very prevalent theme in your films. And so I was just wondering. I know, again, you explained to me a little bit about your background, but if you could talk about a little bit about that and sort of why that is.
Well, Slamma Jamma we made about 4 years ago, and that was actually my biggest film in terms of theater release. We were on 505 theaters. We had Michael Irvin of the Dallas Cowboys, Jose Canseco, some big sports figures. Michael Irvin, of course, played a sports agent in the film.
Yeah.
But this, of course, was not only basketball, but it was faith-based. And as you know, Christopher, my life turned around after Fakin Da Funk. I found Jesus at age 36 and changed my life completely. But that's a whole different story. But Fakin Da Funk was sort of the impetus for Slamma Jamma, because I wrote Slamma Jamma in '98, and it took almost 18 years to get that thing made. But it was amazing. We did it all around a slam dunk competition, and Sony Pictures ended up releasing the film, and we were grateful for the film to have more exposure. But I'm very proud of Slamma Jamma as well. And yes, there is a basketball thread, because I play basketball, and really got inspired by a lot of stories about basketball. And this particular story in Slamma Jamma really moved me. It's sort of inspired by a true story about a guy who found Christ and then wins the slam dunk competition against all odds, and he does a 540 dunk. So that's like 360 and then one more loop, and Ron James can do that. So basketball is absolutely something that was very important in my life, and played a lot of basketball in Venice Beach, in the hood. And I was the only Asian guy at the time, in the hood playing ball. So that's why I can relate a little bit to Jeremy Lin. Who knows, maybe Jeremy Lin saw our film, on USA Networks. Who knows? That might have inspired him as well. But it's great, it's great to show a little bit about that, that people of all colors can play basketball. I think that's what's kind of cool about the sport. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, your films, sir, I will say that you, first of all, you are like amazingly talented filmmaker. You're good at what you do. Me personally, I actually also studied film media production back in college. And for this channel, that's what I do. I just try to make what's part of this channel is I do short films, original AMBW content, featuring Asian men and Black women, in love and in positive portrayals and whatnot. and yeah, I mean, again, it's nice from one aspiring filmmaker to an actual filmmaker to a professional filmmaker who's been through it and has experienced. I want to say thank you very much,
No, no, no.
because
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
I've Asian filmmakers, I do believe, are sort of a rarity nowadays. But I mean, we're definitely on the come up. I mean, Chloe Zhao just, won an Oscar, so it's definitely a good time for that right now.
Yeah.
Um, and I want to ask you, sir. I mean, did you ever think about doing a sequel to Fakin Da Funk? Did anybody ever ask you to do it?
Oh yeah, yeah. Many, many people. I mean, I was actually tagged to write Rush Hour 3.
Oh, really? Well, honestly, I wish you would have, because I probably would have been better than what we got. I was gonna say
Yeah,
I'm not
well,
a fan of that movie.
I know.
It's like,
What can you do? But
yeah.
thank you, Christopher. Yeah, a lot of people have broached doing a sequel to Fake and the Funk. When they're adults and everything. Um, I was offered a lot of gigs to direct. One was this shootout horror movie on a train. They offered me a lot of money. Just a lot of different projects. But I sort of turned them all down, because I started just making faith-based movies after that. And so, my agent dumped me, my managers dumped me, because they weren't into faith at all. And I understand. I'm not stupid. I understand how Hollywood works. But that's pretty much the reason why. If I could make a faith-based Fake and a Funk Part 2, I would. But right now we're so busy. I have about 5 movies we're in pre-production, and right now,
Mm,
so I can't even come up to breathe. But if I did, yeah, absolutely, Christopher. I absolutely love it. And I've made 3 Black movies. I made Freedom, I made Slam a Jam, I made Fake and a Funk, and then we shot a movie in Tokyo.
mm,
So I'm still very, very, very happy about putting in people of all races in our
mm-hmm.
film. And
Yeah.
we just made a movie in Hawaii called 20 Minutes, and the lead actor Kaz Mizuto is Japanese American, and put him in the film, and he had the lead role. So we had a multicultural cast in that film. We shot in Hawaii. It's going on to VOD and all that other stuff, but direct TV, etc. But yeah, man, I would be very interested in making a sequel to Fakin, because it was such a hit 25 years ago, Christopher. Can you imagine that? How fast time goes by?
I mean, I just had my 34th birthday, and it's just like, oh shoot, like where did the time go? Like everyone I know is, growing up and having babies, and so it's just
Yeah.
it's crazy, man. It's definitely crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, okay, so I know that this channel mostly focuses on, AMBW stuff, and mostly romance and relationship stuff. But obviously, I know that I have, a good number of, viewers who are Asian as well, Asian males, and some of them are also aspiring artists and whatnot. So I just had a question: if you could really quickly just tell us, give us your advice on what it takes, maybe from your own background experience or whatever, as an Asian American filmmaker, to make it, you know what I mean, to get your voice out there and to get your work seen.
Well, how I made it was it took me, it's a full-time gig, Christopher. So it took me about a year and a half to get it set up. I entered Hollywood without knowing anybody. And then within a year and a half, I got it set up and shot. But in this day and age, it's a lot easier than it was back then, because we only had 35mm cameras. So I shot Big and Fun with Panavision,
Mm-hmm.
with them, but there was no digital, there was no, HD, HDV, there was no Black Magic cameras, there was
Mm-hmm.
no, they're shooting movies now on your iPhone, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I always look and say, there's no excuse. If you really want to make a movie, you can shoot it. There's no ands, ifs, or buts. And you have, it's a very, very, you have to have drive, because you're commanding a crew. I don't care if it's a crew of 2 people or 3 people, or a crew of hundreds of people. But you can make a movie much easier than 25 years ago, when it was only the big 35mm cameras shot on film that you had to telecine into digital. And they only had the Avid. They didn't have Final Cut Pro or Adobe Premiere Pro. It was only Avid, and it was in a machine. And
Mm-hmm.
you had to get a room. That was the only way you could cut a film. A huge room that cost us $50,000 back in 1990s, because everyone was still cutting on the Moviola or the Steenbeck. They were not cutting digitally. So we were one of the first films to shoot or cut and edit digitally on the Avid. But it was a huge room with huge, machines in the background, and $50,000, Christopher, just to edit and to rent that room. So it cost a fortune. Now you can edit on your laptop, you can edit on your phone. So there's no excuse for my Asian brothers, Black brothers, Caucasian brothers, Hispanic brothers to make a movie. You can do it. You can shoot a film on the weekends and tell your story. Tell your story.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Me personally, I needed to hear that too, because it's not, mostly in this industry, it's kind of, I want to say it's mostly, majority Caucasian driven. So it is nice to finally, talk to, another Asian filmmaker. Thank you very much, sir. Again, you're definitely one of my role models in this industry, and I appreciate all your words on that. And I want to ask too, like, you're, again, Fakin Da Funk, it came out in 1997, and Rush Hour came out a year later. But also, and a lot of people might know this too, the same movie that Fakin Da Funk came out, Cinderella with Brandy Norwood came out as well. Yeah. And so you have another AMBW, led film there. And again, like I keep saying, the 90s seemed like that last era of really popular, I want to say popular and rich storytelling for people of color. I mean, we were everywhere. We were in movies, we were on, television. Fox had so many Black shows, and so many shows that were driven by people of color. You know what I mean? And then you had, of course, Rush Hour. I guess Romeo Must Die came a couple years later after that. But yeah, like in general, everything was sort of centered around like the 90s, and of course, you had the whole era of Michael Jordan. Okay, so now I'm kind of getting on topic because I'm kind of reminiscing about my own childhood now. But of course, you had Space Jam. I mean, the same. It was just. The 90s were an embarrassment of riches, and I know I've said that term before, but they really were. It was there was something, I will say this, sir, there was definitely something in the water at that time. There's definitely something in the water, and I feel like all the artists, including yourselves, including you guys on this film, especially you, there was definitely something in the water there. There's just something, the 90s had this very different energy to it, that you don't see nowadays, like, 20 something years later. Everything nowadays seems a lot more corporate. Everything nowadays seems a lot less diverse and a lot less rich, in terms of storytelling. Everything is a lot more sort of, kind of like just, what's the word? Everything feels like it's coming off like a big assembly line nowadays,
Yeah,
and yeah. And, in terms of like Asian led films, I mean, we like, okay, so, we don't have a whole lot nowadays, in terms of like mainstream Hollywood and stuff like that. But we had, Crazy Rich Asians, which came out more recently. I guess that was the last one. We had the John Cho movie, which is Searching, which is a great movie. I love that movie. And then we have, Shang-Chi coming out in, a few months as well. So, but I still want to say, again, I'm a little bit biased again, because I'm a 90s baby. I'm a 90s kid who grew up in that era. But I want to say that nothing really compares to that era. You know what I mean? It was just pop culture was just so infused with, beautiful and rich storytelling and music and sports which were all driven mostly by people of color, by us, by people that look like us, and I'm just wondering, like 20 something years later, why hasn't that caught on? Why do you think things have sort of regressed a little bit and gone the other direction?
I think you look at the times that we're in, like 99, we had the first real mass shooting in Columbine. Things got really dark then. And then in 2001, of course, we had 9/11, the World Trade Center. And the world got really, really dark, at that point. I think the 80s, the innocent 80s that blended into the innocent 90s. Once 9/11 happened, I even saw with my own projects, they didn't want anything light and bubbly anymore and with heart. Now it got very, very dark after 9/11 in 2001. And it's almost like it killed the spirit of filmmaking for a few years. I started making darker movies, about like the rapture and the end of the world kind of things. And back then, you remember Arnold Schwarzenegger came out with End of Days. I mean, it was a very dark time, and still getting dark. But I would say, 2000 and the 2000s for me was sort of a dark era, Christopher, in terms of movie making. And Slamma Jamma, which we shot in 2016, was sort of a harken back to the 80s and 90s, which you talk about, you know, which you love. But then I regressed and went back into darker movies again. So maybe it's just a sign of the times that filmmaking is just getting darker and darker, you know. And but then you have a Crazy Rich Asians that goes back to the 80s and 90s filmmaking kind of style,
Right.
in terms of the romantic rom-com type of story, you know, where you've seen that story before, a Cinderella type story where she, or Pretty in Pink, where she you know, she meets a rich guy and blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of harking, like you said, to the 80s and 90s, and the audience maybe is looking for that as well. But the new crop of filmmakers, the young ones, they're going dark. They're going dark. The agencies are pitching more dark. The studios want more dark. It's just the sign of the times, maybe, you know, that it's a very rough time, but you can still make great movies during this time. You know, you can still make great movies.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. You know, and again, I've said this over and over, but I definitely am biased. I want that style of filmmaking. You know, I remember when Independence Day 2 dropped like a few years ago, and I was so excited to see it, even though Will Smith was not in it, and it turned out to be the biggest piece of crap I've ever seen. And I was like, dude, like you guys are ruining you guys are ruining my childhood from '96. Stop doing, and the Space Jam too. I'm gonna be honest. I'm a little bit afraid for that because that's part of my childhood. I don't want them to ruin that. But LeBron's a great player. But I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic. But no, I mean, okay, so yeah, so so I know we're going to. My next question is a little bit more personal, but I'm not going to try to dig too deep into your personal life. But I just had a question. So I know that you said that you have experience going out with, women of other races, including Black women. And I just had a question again. Obviously, that's what this whole channel is about. So I had a question, like, you know, what are your thoughts, sort of, on that specific pairing? Like, what do you personally think, like, you got out of those relationships, and did you feel that there was any sort of, maybe, what's the word? Not like tension, but like sort of like divide there, like at first, at least, like, was there, like, yeah, basically, how was it? Sorry.
Oh yeah, well, I married a woman who's mixed. You know,
Oh,
she
okay.
half Filipino, half Japanese,
Hmm.
and uh, and so I never was sort of an Asian file. You know, just hanging out with just my own tribe. So I always like to branch out, like you. And but I was dating Black women in high school.
Mm.
So it wasn't abnormal back then. I'm telling you, like the 1992 riots was really a big divide. And it was wrong. It was wrong how they kept pitching, this Black versus Asian kind of thing was awful. And I didn't like that at all. I think that was one of the impetuses for Fakin Da Funk. But yeah, I had no problems back then. It was just like it was not abnormal for an Asian guy to be dating a Black woman. And then it just got darker and darker and darker. But I think still it's a lot. It's better, actually. 20 years from now, I do see a lot of my Asian brothers dating my Black sisters, and it's not a problem at all. I think it is getting more accepted, but it was still very innocent 25 years ago. It wasn't a big thing. But I think starting in 92 and 93, after the riots in LA, I think it became a little more, maybe a little more, I don't know, divisive or whatever. But it was never Romeo and Juliet, where it was like, you have one tribe, dating another tribe. It was never like that in the 80s
Right.
and 90s. But it's just gotten worse and worse. So now, even now, with this woke culture that we're in, it's tougher, to do many, many things. The innocence of America is not like it was in the 80s and 90s, and again, I was dating Black women in high school, and everyone got along. Caucasian people got along with Black people, Asian people got along with everybody. Hispanics, of course, get along with everybody. It was just a wonderful time I have two kids, and they'll never see that innocent time that you went through, Christopher, as well. They'll never see that innocent time. So yeah, to go back to your question, yeah, it wasn't a big thing, dating different races back when I went to high school, and later on in college.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, again, that's I think a lot of people needed to hear that. A lot of people, especially Black women who are interested in Asian men and vice versa, might be interested in dating outside their race and whatnot. But they might be shy or they might have, reservations for whatever reason. I think a big part of this channel, our whole like purpose is to show that it is natural, like you're saying. It's okay to approach someone who doesn't exactly look like you or has different skin color.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You like who you like. Love is love, ultimately. And if you want to date an Asian guy, and go for it. If you want to date a Black girl, go for it. Absolutely. You never know. That person might be, like, your wife in the future, the future mother of your children, wife. Like, you should never ever say no to that just because of someone's race. And I don't want to veer off into like too negative territory here, but one thing that I liked about your movie, Fakin Da Funk especially, is the positive portrayal of Asian men. You know what I mean? We're not, and again, your film was the exception because we don't see that a whole lot. Nowadays, we're like the sidekick. Nowadays, we're like the villain. We're we're like some racial stereotype. You know what I mean? We're some sort of undesirable freak, basically. You know what I mean? And that's not how we are in real life. And for some reason, Hollywood has an obsession of sidelining us. Sidelining the Asian man. You know, and unless it's some movie like Shang-Chi or Crazy Rich Asians. You know what I mean? Which again, those movies only come out like every decade or so. They're not popular at all, really. So yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, again, your movie was very popular in that regard. Um, and when it comes to like the dating scene and whatnot, I wish there were more films that covered, that showed Asian men in positive portraying leading roles as like the love interest, as a leading man, because we deserve to be, the leading man in these big budget Hollywood movies and in these big Hollywood films. Like people don't understand the power and the importance of positive representation. You had Black Panther come out, which was a landmark film. The sequel's coming out next year. We're getting more films like this, but in my opinion, it's not coming fast enough. you know and that's why I implore everyone watching this video, please listen to Tim's words, listen to what I'm saying, listen to what everyone is saying here. You can go out, support these films, go out, support you know these films, who have that have positive portrayals of us, people of color. Support it, support it by paying for it. I mean, you vote with your wallet. We want to see more movies like this. We want to bring back that rich era of filmmaking to Hollywood, what I mean, where people of color can direct, just positive movies, powerful movies like this. And I know, I'm sorry, I'm trying not to get too off topic here, but no, I just want to say, sir, that again, and I know that like you have to go pretty soon, but again, I just want to say before I let you go, I want to say thank you again for making that movie. It was such a fun movie. It is a gem of a movie. You really don't, when people say that, this movie's a gem or it's a gem of a film, they don't say it too often. You know what I mean? They don't throw that word around a lot. So your film is, in my opinion, it's underrated, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Do not get that twisted. It's a good movie. There's very few negative things I can say about it because, like I said again, I went to film school, so I have that kind of film student mindset mentality still. But
Sure.
it is something. And on that topic, I want to bring this up too. I heard that around the time or whatever, like this film was actually required viewing in a lot of in a lot of schools and like universities and whatnot.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so, which is awesome because most of the time we're watching these movies with like these classic white casts like Citizen Kane, Godfather, and whatnot. But it's nice to be learning about cinema, and seeing ourselves represented on screen at the same time.
Yeah,
Um,
it was some required viewing in many, many universities, and that was very, very exciting to see that. Racial courses. They all said "Fakin' the Funk," you have to watch it, and it was an exclusive at Blockbuster Video,
mhm,
which was really cool. And it was an exclusive, Christopher, for almost 9 months, I think, on
mhm.
the exclusive new release shelf. And I saw movies that were coming and going, and they went back to the old shelf, and Fakin' the Funk still stayed. And it was one of the most rented, I think it was rented millions of times at Blockbuster Video. So
Yes.
it had a huge, home run on USA Networks and then later on Blockbuster. But but yeah, I agree with you, Crystal. We need more Asian filmmakers, doing more multicultural films. more Black filmmakers doing more multicultural film, Hispanic, even Caucasians, you know, who have friends of many different races. And I think it's just hard work. You know, I have a lot of Asian friends who only have Asian friends. I have a lot of Caucasian friends who only have Caucasian friends. I have Jewish friends who only hang out with Jewish people. Black people only hanging out with Black people. I think that's a major problem. That's a major problem. They're missing out on a huge benefit of having friends of all races. They're missing out, and it's very tragic. And but fortunately, my two children have friends of all races, and they don't care. You know, they've now you know, come of age. And I think if people are just too tribalistic, they're missing out. They're missing out on the most wonderful aspect of life, which is to have friends of all races, you know, erasing the color lines. Because you can learn so much. You know, I definitely, you know, I've directed 15 movies. I don't think I could have done that if I had not played hoops with all my Black brothers, you know, and, you know, when in Venice Beach, I think it made me a little more aggressive, you know, and I think it would be great if my Asian brothers just had more Black cultural, you know, values, because it just makes you a lot more aggressive, you know, a lot more, you know, you need that as a director, you know, you need a more aggressive, you know, sort of Black cultural things. And you can take so much from the Hispanic people, hardest working, most humble people. My Caucasian friends, you know, they're amazing inventors, you know, they're very studious people. So, you know, I saw the whole gambit. And of course, I love hanging out with my Asian brothers. They're so studious, and people can just learn from all different races, man, all different cultures, all different languages, countries. You know, my wife and I, we traveled to, we traveled to over 40 countries, but we did a movie called Epic Journey, which you can watch for free on YouTube. Just type in Epic Journey movie. Took us to 29 countries. And after you come back from that, Christopher, I'm telling you, man, you really don't have an excuse for, you know, you just love and appreciate all cultures, all food, all languages, all people groups. You really fall in love with everybody, and you can take all the different cultural aspects, the best parts of every culture, and blend it into yourself, so that you're almost like a superhero, and you find God and Christ, and you're unstoppable. You're unstoppable. Yeah. So that's what I pitch to everybody: is get out and know everybody, find God, and you know, you'll be unstoppable in anything that you do in life. And you know, definitely that applied to my life as well. So.
Yes, sure. Yeah, amazing. Well, I know our time is coming to an end, and you have your very busy schedule ahead of you. But again, thank you, Tim, for you know, first of all, yeah, just making the time out of your very busy schedule to come sit with us and talk with us today. I appreciate it. I'm gonna make one pitch, and then I want you to do the same. But I want, again, like, guys, on this channel, if you're watching this, like, please go out, watch this movie. It is a gem of a film. I'm telling you right now. You know, it's not a superhero movie. It's not a Fast and Furious movie. It's a good movie. That's what I'm gonna say. It's a good movie, and that is honestly the highest compliment I can give a film. Not just as a film student, but as just, you know, Asian American, or just like a human being in general. It's a good film. It should be required viewing for everybody out there. You know, whether you're Asian, Black, white, Hispanic, doesn't matter, because it comes from an era of filmmaking that is lost. You know, and it comes from an era of filmmaking that frankly, we haven't seen it over 25 years, and who knows if we'll ever see it again. But I'm telling you, it is one of those, some of my favorite movies are character driven. And a lot of them, yes, a lot of them, like I said 100 times before in this video, a lot of them come from the 90s. But, you know, it is true. I love that era of filmmaking. There's so many good films from that era. So I've said all I can say about that film. Mr. Chey, I was wondering if you could make a pitch for everyone watching this to go out and watch your film as well.
Oh, no, thanks, Christopher. Well, first off, really appreciate you having me on. And, you know, you're a great filmmaker yourself, I can tell.
Thank you.
And we definitely need more people of color making films, making stories. Yeah, I encourage everybody to watch your channel, get out, make movies, and it's just a wonderful blessing. And filmmaking is addicting, so I warn everybody, don't get into it without knowing it's one of the most addicting habits in the world. Steven
Yes.
Spielberg said filmmaking is the most expensive addiction you could possibly have, more addicting than heroin. And it's true, there's nothing like it in the world. So, but encourage everybody to again, get out, meet as many people of other races, cultures. You will be so blessed. My wife and I have been so blessed traveling to all the different countries around the world, meeting people of all different walks of life. And, again, we're just excited and ecstatic that, we found God. And also, meeting people like you, Christopher, and your wonderful channel. Just such a blessing to be here on your show, and look forward to hopefully coming on again and
Absolutely.
we do Fakin Da Funk too. We'll
Absolutely,
definitely
sir.
talk.
Absolutely, sir. You are always welcome whenever you want to come on this channel. It's amazing, but yeah, man, like I said, okay, so I'm not gonna keep you on forever. I know you have to go. But again, thank you very much, sir. Everyone,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for watching this video, and thank you. I hope, I wish you, luck and success in, I mean, obviously you don't need much luck because, amazingly talented filmmaker who's already very successful. But, yeah, again, I hope, yeah, just just keep doing your
Thanks,
thing, man, because
Christopher.
you're doing a
Yeah.
great job. You're doing a great job. So
Thanks, Christopher. God bless you, and God bless everybody on the channel.
thank you so much, sir. Have a good one.
Thanks, Christopher. You too, my friend.
All right,
God bless.
bye.